Primordial Radio.
Hello, it's Adam here on Primordial Radio, and for March we have a brand new guest on the radio residency, and I am delighted to be joined by Cristina from LACUNA COIL. How are you?
Hello, hi, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me. Really excited.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, you've just been telling us, you've been telling me that you've been out in the mountains for a few days. That must be nice.
Yes, it is nice because it's a full promo period because our new record, Sleepless Empire, has been out for a little bit more than a week now. So a lot of interviews, a lot of like moving around, you know, town and countries to promote it with interviews, which I love. But right before an extensive tour, I just needed like a couple of days in the mountains with nothing around me, complete silence to reset.
I was going to say that because you've got a very, extensive is probably an understatement. You're touring from, mid-March through till the end of the year. Is that something that, you know, are you excited to do that, to get the songs out, the new songs out to the audience? What are you most excited about going on tour?
I am excited about it all. I mean, it's the path that I chose. For those who are not traveling for a living, because I mean that's part of my job as well, they would not understand. I have many friends that even just jumping on a tour bus, they are like, "Oh my God, are you guys living here?" So it's not for everyone, but it's the life that I chose. So I love everything about it. Not only, of course, writing, singing, doing concerts, but also traveling, meeting all other cultures, see new things. I think that it really opens up your mind. Traveling opens up your mind a lot.
We'll get more onto the touring and discussion later. I did actually, just before this, watch a brilliant Revolver YouTube thing you did a couple of years ago, and it was your, I think it was your 10 favourite things, or 10 things you can't tour without, and the first one was
the video.
disinfectant. Yeah.
I was in New York filming this, so I literally had to gather things that I had with me on the bus, and that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, the first one being disinfectant. I'm not going to dive into anything more about that and the possible state of the tour bus.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the new album.
It's more because of the smell. I gotta say that we are extremely clean creatures, especially on the bus. We treat it as our home. So we have a lot of respect for our bus. We clean it all the time. We arrange it all the times. But sometimes, you know, like around 15 people in the same closed space, deodorant, it's always.
Yeah, for sure. Right, as you mentioned, brand new album Sleepless Empire is out now. It's your 11th studio album, I believe. I mean, you've been a very prolific band. What's been different about this one? Have you changed your approach compared to the previous?
Well, first thing first, I think it's the first record with a lot of years in between, and that was due to the pandemic. We all went through, and also because, I mean, we write in a different way than many bands. Many bands are able to write separately and just to exchange material that they are creating through the computer. We need to be together as a band in the same spot, in the same place. And because of the pandemic, we couldn't see each other in person. This kind of caused a sort of a creative block. It was the first time that we actually stayed home for a prolonged period in time, which was almost nice in the beginning, you know, when we didn't know what was going to happen. But after a while, it kind of crashes us down musically, and I think we simply decided to focus on our mental health and also into learning something completely different, because each one of us focused on something different. I focused on Twitch and, you know, my merch line, and I played more video games, which is the other passion that I have. Maki focused on like creating graphics because he's very good in you know, in the artistically. I mean, each one of us did something different. And this period lasted so long that we actually ended up writing a record 5 years after, a full record. But in between, we restarted to write again with the remaking of of a classic record of Lacuna Coil called Comalies. It was its 20th anniversary, so we decided to pay the right to tribute to a record that means a lot to us, because it's the record that made us literally do the next step internationally. And we love it so much. There are songs in it that have become, instant classics for us. So we said, why don't we try to give a different version? Not because we don't like the original one, but just to see how Comalies would be written in 2022. And it was very interesting. A lot of fans are now confused because they're like, they don't know anymore if they prefer the old versions or the new versions. And it doesn't really matter because, you don't have to choose. So much that we released it with 2 CDs. So you can have the original one and the new version as well. So this started the writing process again, sparkled, ignited the fire again in us. And we started to write again. We started to tour again to collect experiences, and that's very important because we put everything we incorporate traveling into our music.
It's really interesting because obviously the Comalies album came out 2002, and so you wrote those songs then, performed them, they're on record, and you would have then spent 20 years touring them. So I imagine the newer, it sounds a lot more like these songs have been on the road and they've developed in that way. So does that kind of then feed into how you were writing for Sleepless Empire, as in, more about how will we play these on the road and then bring them into the studio?
Well, I think that going, lurking into the past brought us to write a record that it's incorporating a lot of old school sounds. We didn't do it on purpose, at least lyrically and in terms of lyrics. I am pretty sure that Maki, our bass player who writes the music, I think that he definitely absorbed a lot from what we were doing years ago. And I don't even know. I have to ask him if he did it somehow intentionally, because sometimes we realize something about our music through interviews and opinions that we read. I never realized that this sound, the Sleepless Empire, had something from the old sound, because it's something that represents us in the present. So it's not that we said intentionally, okay, let's bring something from the past here because someone asked us or we're not happy about what we're doing. So it's interesting through the reading of people's comments or journalists. It's like, okay, so you think that it has old school sonorities as well. That's interesting. And it can definitely be related to the fact that we rewrote a record that was 20 years older and probably brought something back.
I read an interview with, for example, Dave from Monster Magnet, and he was saying they had their breakthrough album, Power Trip, and then there was kind of a lot of pressure to get out, ride that wave, get the next one out. Was that similar when, Comalies came out in 2002? Did you feel any pressure to kind of ride that wave, with it being, quote unquote, the breakthrough album?
Not that kind of pressure, but the pressure of deadlines, because we are always kind of procrastinating. When we're writing a record, we're never happy about it until the very last second. So we're always just like, oh, this could be done better. Let's redo this. And we spend a lot of time just like rethinking and never being like 100 happy at the demo moment. But I think that you don't have to think about how big of a success your album is going to have, because there is not a recipe for success. You can't make everyone happy. You have to do what you feel. And if someone gets the message, if someone interacts with you and shares the same vibes you were going through when you wrote the record, it's even better. But you can't really plan a record to be fully successful. I mean, not even huge mainstream artists are able to do that. Even super successful ones. I mean, they have more promos. They will see their song everywhere. But people might not like it. People might be fed up of the same style over and over. People might not like, I don't know, something you said or something you talked about in a song. You can't really not prevent. I'm trying to translate the Italian world, like advance the opinion of whoever is going to listen. We don't think about that. The only pressure we have is about deadlines, because you have to bring that damn master that day in order to be, developed into music that everybody can hear.
You released Comalies in 2002, and then to be honest, you've been very, very successful as a band. 20 years later, you were still very successful. You've managed to re-record, reimagine it. So, you've actually just sort of got almost like 20 years of fresh energy going into this album. And the reason why I feel like it's a point to bring up is just because this album feels so energetic. It kind of feels, it springs out the speakers. I was running listening to it this morning, and luckily I was having a slow run, and a couple of tracks came on, and it really pushed me on, and it really drove me forward with what I was doing.
That's great.
Do you feel that energy in the studio? Because I know obviously modern digital recording's quite, it's very process driven. It's not as it might have been 50 years ago, getting in, hitting, recording a tape, and everyone playing together. But did you feel that energy as a band together?
We did. We're still very excited about writing music. It's not something that we do because we wouldn't do what to do.
Yeah.
We love to write music. We love to perform, and there was a great vibe within the band. We're excited about this project. We had something to say. I think this also makes a big difference when you are writing a record as an artist. If you have something to say, you can pass over the enthusiasm. And I honestly couldn't wait to record my parts, to see how they were sounding. And, just the fact of re-meeting again in our studio was magical. I know that Maki went through a lot personally, so writing this record was therapy for him.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see that we all gathered and got together, to support each other through all this.
Pick out some personal highlights from yourself. Obviously, singles get chosen, singles get released. What was your greatest moment, you think, personally on the album for you?
In this record?
Yeah.
My greatest moments are always when I reach notes that I wouldn't think I would ever reach. Unfortunately for me, luckily for whoever is listening, because apparently, a lot of people loves when I go super high. But for me, it's it's not always easy, due to the fact that you have scheduled days in which you can record vocals. At least this is working for us. Sometimes you're just like not in shape, you're tired, you're sick, because voice is a physical instrument. So it depends on how you are feeling. So I was very proud of some parts that I do that was super, super, super high. And I don't know, it's a weird feeling because I never studied, I never took lessons to sing. So whenever I'm able to do something that I didn't do before, it's like, oh wow, I didn't know that I could do this. And it's always surprising and interesting, after so many years I've been singing. But I love these moments.
I imagine it's a bit like weightlifting. Like, someone getting a personal best lifting a weight. I imagine that must be like the sort of buzz.
I think it is. And then you lift it and it's like, wow, it's, twice as my weight and I can do it. How is this even possible?
Well, go on then. Pick a couple of tracks from it. Pick a couple of tracks that you think represent your highlights in the album.
Oh, in this record, in Sleepless Empire, absolutely the song Sleepless Empire, because I go pretty high. And another one in which I don't really go super high, but the beginning is really strange. It's like a chorus that comes from Calabria. Calabria is a region in Italy. It's a Calabrese song that we found online. It's like a super, super old one. We saw it in a documentary, not even online. And we heard it and we reproduced it. And it's the beginning of the song In Nomine Patris. It's at the beginning and at the end of the song. And it's cool because it's a song that the ladies that were cutting in the fields.
Wheat?
Wheat.
Or corn.
To motivate each other. They were cutting and they were saying like, cut, my friend, cut.
Yeah.
But we also intended it as figuratively as death.
Yeah.
So we incorporated it in the song. And I think that it was very interesting because to try to figure out what the voice were doing and try to reproduce them, because it's like three songs together, three vocal lines together that could have the same sound was very, very interesting to do.
So I want to talk a bit about yourself, and I want to talk about some of your musical influences that have got you to where you are now. So look, the obvious one is, what was the first moment that you recognized music as something you wanted to do? What was it, and who were you listening to at the time?
Okay, so we go back in ages because I always loved to sing. I never thought about becoming a singer, a rock star. Never even passed my thoughts. I knew that I wanted to sing. I didn't want to be in the spot. I started to work in the 90s with some friends that were DJing. Yeah. So my background is not metal at all because my brothers and sister brought their music in our house. So I have, learned a lot about A&R music. I've listened to a lot of Genesis, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, some traditional Italian music. My brother was going to London regularly in unsuspected times, and he was bringing back, the first hip hop or the electronic music from clubs. But I was still a little girl, so I was listening to mainstream music, from Madonna, Duran Duran. I was a huge Duran Duran fan. And I started to find out about metal when I started to hang out in a metal pub in Milano with a friend of mine who took me there. And that's where my head exploded because I started to find out about bands that I've never heard before. And I was like, oh, what is this music? It gives me so much emotion. And that's the place where I actually met Marco, our bass player, and Andrea, our singer. They already had, their local band, so I entered a little after creating LACUNA COIL. But that's where I started to hear metal for the first time. I would say that the bands that influenced me hardly were Type O Negative, Paradise Lost, but also Pantera. Yeah. They were playing Halloween. They were playing Clawfinger. I like Clawfinger as well. The first Metallica. I heard a little bit of Metallica years before, but the most melodic stuff, like, Nothing Else Matters, that was, in a compilation that a friend of mine did. And funny story, years and years before, a friend of mine was a huge fan of Iron Maiden. And he was my best friend, and he asked me to get him a copy of the record. So I got him a cassette of Iron Maiden, purely basing my taste on the cover. I was just like, I like this cover, I'm going to get it. But I never thought about listening to it. And to this day, I'm like, why? I mean, I was always extremely curious why I never even thought about just like, why don't I listen to his favorite band? It was my best friend.
So I always find metal's a very inclusive community, and it's a nice place to be. I think people on the outside look at metal, think, oh, it's all scary. They're wearing black clothes, all got skulls on it. But it's a really friendly, lovely community. And all of the bands you've just listed, they didn't really have any sort of female representation. How was that to you, thinking about, I'm just going to sing it? Because I think the perfect answer would be, it wasn't a concern. It wasn't anything that should have even been thought of as differently. Yeah. But how was it in those early days?
Well, they were the very first years of females getting into bands. So, you know, like The Gathering was starting. I like them very much. Nightwish, like few bands, but I actually liked how the female voice was sounding, and I wasn't scared because having this background of mainstream music, for me, it was absolutely normal to see a female singing, maybe in a different genre, but for me, it was not like, oh, metal, I gotta protect it because it's only sung by guys. I didn't care. I was just like, oh, cool, I can sing on some music. And the guys had the same idea, and they were like, you are singing, why don't we join forces and see what we can come up with? You can come up with some vocal lines and maybe something interesting can come out of it. And that's how it happened. That's how we recorded our demo tape, because back then we used to record on tapes, and we sent it around the world hoping in a reply from some, you know, a record label that could be interested in us.
Who was the first one who got back to you? How was that moment? Recount that moment when you first, because, I mean, email or letter writing back then? What would have been the response?
No, it was even no email. Are you kidding me? No, there were no phones. There was no internet. The only things that were present back there, it was a telephone, fax, and actual sending something with the post. With the post office. So we got the reply through fax because I was working at my brother's shop. He had a shop, like a clothing shop years ago, and it was our office. So I was basically, you know, the secretary keeping in touch, you know, with whoever was answering and sending stuff. And I think Nuclear Blast was the first one to answer. And then we got the proposal from Century Media. We also got an actual letter from a label that I can't remember that was telling us that we were not just, you know, cool enough, and it was not interesting, and it was not just the right moment. So think about it.
I really wish... I mean, obviously at the time, you don't know what you know now, but it would have been amazing to have kept that letter. Framed
I have it somewhere, but I don't remember. Yes, I don't remember the name of the label, but I mean, I don't want to, you know, of course, I say like, oh, bad choice. I kind of feel like, you know, Pretty Woman, you know. Have you ever seen the movie when she comes back into the store?
Do you know what? I haven't, but I know the plot. Yeah.
You know, when she enters the store, and in the store they're like, this is not the right place for you, and she comes back with a lot of bags from the other stores, and it's kind of like, bad choice. Yeah. I mean, of course they did what they felt, but probably the thing that I've learned from this as well is that you don't have to be afraid of something that sounds different to your ears, because it might be the right thing, even if it's not what's trendy at the moment. It could be something that starts a trend. It's always cool to get over, you know, what's cool at the moment. Let's be the cool one that looks outside of the box.
And that's the secret sauce, the sort of magic with some record labels, I think, nowadays. You get those who know what's currently popular, try and look for like a clone of that. But there are some who, you know, they take a chance on something that is completely different, which I always find, you know, it's an expensive industry. You've got to have a lot of sort of gusto to be able to do that. But tell me about the Italian music scene back then. I'm really interested. I actually work on a podcast which is an American girl who lives in Italy, and it's her sort of journey through Italian culture. And Italian culture does, you know, it sounds very unique. There's a lot of different things and a lot of stuff that, you know, it's done very differently in Italy. How was the music industry then? Were there lots of Italian bands that you were sort of seeing and part of, or like part of the scene, or was it a lot more imported from America and sort of more Western?
A lot of imported music from charts. You know, the biggest artists in the world are coming to Italy. But I gotta say that in the years, things have changed to the point that there is a lot more Italian music in the charts. This is also due to the fact that one of the most popular genres now is trap. And I think it's easier for the young generation to write down like a diary, their ideas, their poems, and try to translate them in music, which not necessarily ends up being, in a great results all the times. But I think this brought even more Italian music in the radio stations. There is no space for the underground, to be honest.
Yeah.
Metal is very much alive, but underneath. The metal community is very, very supportive. Every time there is a metal band that has a good success, they all gather and they go see this band. But there are not many bands from Italy that can actually make it abroad. And I think it's kind of sad, because when I look out of Italy, there are many places in which metal is treated as any other genre. You might like it, you might not like it, but at least has the same opportunities. In Italy, there are, the stereotypes you were talking about. Oh, metal is noise. Ooh, what's that? Distorted guitars. Ugh.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, many people has this opinion.
And in the beginning, was there a question at any stage whether you would sing in English or sing in Italian or write your songs in different languages? Was it always, it was going to be English?
We have a couple of songs in which, we incorporated Italian, but we were sure that English was going to be the language. Not because, we didn't like the Italian language. We love Italy, we love the Italian language, but for the type of music we are playing, English is the natural choice. And also because I've been listening to so many artists that were singing in English. So for me, it was 100% natural. I was like, no, I feel more comfortable. It's weird to say, but singing in Italian is completely different. Just like the tone of your voice changes as well. I see interviews. When I speak in Italian, I have a different voice than when I speak in English.
Is it the way you emote? Is it like different syllables and things? Like there's
we use our hands a lot anyway, as an Italian would be. But it's just the tone that changes. When I speak with my voice in Italian, I don't know, the pitch, it's higher. I don't know.
It's a really interesting thing, I think as English people, we certainly growing up, we don't put enough onus on learning second languages at all. Whereas I think a lot of European countries, as I mentioned earlier, I live in Poland. I can't yet speak Polish. I didn't learn it at any stage, whereas everyone speaks English. So we kind of take it for granted. But I guess, as you said, you're listening to Typo Negative, Paradise Lost, Pantera, Iron Maiden, that sort of band, they're going to be obviously singing in English as well. And that kind of brings me over to my next question, which is growing up or maybe not even growing up, we can take it to now. What's been the most influential gig or best gig that you've ever seen?
Ooh, well, if we are talking about a gig being super spectacular, I think that the Roger Waters concert, I've seen one in Orlando, was the most spectacular one, because they were inflatable all around the venue. On stage, he actually built a wall, like huge bricks, one after one. And when I thought that it was over, because I was just like, okay, the wall is built, you see people coming out of the wall and then out of the floor. I was just like, what the hell is this? Like, I was super, super mesmerized. Or a Rammstein concert.
Yeah.
Rammstein has a visual that is unparalleled. And I have a cool anecdote about this. We recorded our first albums in Germany, and they were popular already there, but not in the rest of Europe. So they came to Milano. It was circa 98, 99. And we went to see them in this super small club. It was so small that they have to give away some tickets because they only sold something like 15. So it was like 30 people, including myself, Maki and Andrea, watching Rammstein giving this concert. And we loved it because they were already using, some of their tricks.
Less explosive.
The sodomizing part. There was a fire effect that was going from the stage to the back of this small venue, and it was very funny because they had a girl doing some choruses in a couple of songs, and it was their merchandiser. So it was cool to see her just like going to the merch, then running on stage and getting changed quickly to do the courses that were pre-recorded, I guess, because I don't think it was really hard. But it was one of the best gigs that I've ever seen. And I was just like, thinking about how far they've come, how huge they've become. It's like no matter what, they gave a great gig, even in front of 30 people, 20, 30 people. They killed it. They didn't matter, they didn't say like, okay, nobody here. Oh, okay, let's just play and just like, let it end soon. They gave a concert that I will never, ever forget.
It's amazing they're thinking big in like a small venue, and they're still, their show was still putting a lot more in than just playing music.
Yeah, because, of course, music has to unite the artist and whoever is coming to the show. But your potential, your value is still the same. It's not, a bigger scenography or more people coming to your concert that should define the value of what you're bringing. You're presenting yourself. You can be bigger or smaller, but it doesn't really matter. You're on top of the charts. You're not better than other bands that might just like gather 10 people but making killer music.
Yeah. It's a really interesting take, and I think in general 2 very interesting choices for gigs. But I guess the big question to follow that is, what's a band who, and they can be obviously performing now, maybe not performing, who do you regret never seeing?
Queen.
Yep.
Queen.
Okay, I saw Queen with Adam Lambert. Now I think Adam Lambert's a good singer, but I actually regret the experience overall because it just made me miss what it didn't represent the Queen that I love. I was brought up on Queen, and what a band. Yeah,
I think Adam is a good choice, and I also understand, the rest of Queen that of course you just want to extend the legacy. And also, how can you find another singer like Freddie Mercury? That's the huge problem. How can you? Because I never saw the show and his voice as well. It was not just about singing. It was just a special aura that he had. Up until a few months ago, I would have said Depeche Mode as well, because they were one of my favorite bands, and I just recently saw them.
Yeah.
I don't know why. For some reason, of my favorite bands, I never saw them live. I never saw Duran Duran live. I never saw Madonna live. I used to be a huge fan of Madonna and Duran Duran as well. I still am. Never saw them live. I don't know.
But how did Depeche Mode go? Did it live up to expectations?
Oh my God, yeah, I cried. They did. They did, and even if it was, of course, a different, lineup, of course, it was very moving. They played a song that they never played live that I haven't heard before. It's called Before We Drown, and I cried because I was just like, wow, they're still able to, to be so moving for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. I sometimes feel like when you build up a band in your head as an expectation that maybe it would. So, for example, my favourite band is Queens of the Stone Age. I've never seen them live.
I did.
And do you recommend it to me?
I recommend it because, I only saw one concert of them, but I actually liked it a lot. They were exactly what I expected. To be honest, I saw them years and years ago, but I remember they were just doing their thing. They were in their zone, and you were just witnessing. They're not the band that is just hey, how you guys doing? Not that type of band. It seemed that they were playing for themselves, and you were just like in a room with them, which is still, a different but good experience as well, because you could tell that they were into what they were doing. But I like them.
That actually now, to sort of go into the last portion of this interview, I want to go back to yourself, your band and everything. And you say they're Queens of the Stone Age playing for themselves. When you write music, do you think about at any stage what the fans might want? Or is it more about what you guys want to sound like yourselves?
We don't write for them, but we know for sure that some passages out of our lyrics will move them in a way, because our music has always been, yes, dark and obscure at times, but it's very positive. We are positive people. We're always looking at the glass half full.
Yeah.
And we want our fans to be empowered by our music. Without even knowing, we know that we are, throwing out there the message that you can make it through. Yeah. Because, life is not perfect all the times, and we are all eventually going into a darkest moment in life, but, we can just like learn from it. So we know for sure that some of the messages in our songs will go through, or they will be interpreted this way. Many times it happens that fans are coming to us saying like, thank you so much. This song of yours saved my life. I wanted to commit suicide, and then I heard this song, and we are like, but we didn't write it for that thing. But it's good that you just like read something more in lyrics that are always pretty open, and you got something out of the music that kind of make you feel so strong. I love this power of music.
Do you have any particular songs that you feel are the most misunderstood? Like when people have come and said to you things like that, has there been one song that stood out, a Lacuna Coil song, that people do tend to sort of
I think we have an album that it's misunderstood, but not completely. I'll explain myself better. We did a record called Shallow Life years ago. And it is true that listening to it entirely, I can tell that some songs are confusing because they're so different in style. So you kind of have to understand it for real from the inside. But I can understand why it wasn't not well received, because there are songs from that record that went amazingly, like Spellbound, that got in radio stations and everything. So people liked it. I think that the pictures that we took for it were completely misunderstood. We tried a different look, but I remember that we did it because we wanted to be against the Shallow Life. I remember a photo shoot of Andrea and I dressed like a rapper and a pop princess. And of course, it wasn't us bringing that image for the future tours or on stage. And it was not us in our everyday life. But I remember that many people saw it as just like, oh, okay, so now they're doing pop. Oh, just like looking at her, she looks like, I don't know, Taylor Swift. Oh, I look at Andrea. He wants to do the rapper now. And there was no rap. And we were like, wow. So from that record, we paid a lot of attention to the image that you delivered, because no matter the music you play, many people will only look at the image and just like, okay, they're doing this kind of music. So we pay attention to this, and we're not going to be so ironical, because it's metalheads. A lot of metalheads don't have a big sense of humor.
Yeah. Sounds like an artistic comment gone wrong, if you know what I mean, like what you were trying to do.
Yeah. It's not a problem, because, we just realized this. I like to overanalyze sometimes, what we did, what happened. And I still love that record. I think that there are songs that I still love very much. But I think that the image that came with it wasn't focused.
And how, as a band, it always happens that, how do you deal with reviews? Do you read them? Do you analyze them as a band? I've sat in vans with bands in the past when, maybe they've had a bad review, for example, and it kind of doesn't necessarily go down well at all. And being a band your size, it's impossible to be praised all the time because everyone has opinions and things like that. How do you deal with that internally?
Yeah.
Does that drive you guys forward if ever it happens?
It's also impossible to read them all because now there are
Yeah.
so many outlets, on not only the few printed magazines, but also internet. It's everywhere, and everyone has an opinion, even if they don't know anything about music, even if they don't hear a record. I read them. Whenever I have the chance, I read them all. I'm very present online. I try to, to figure out what people are thinking about the record and hear opinions. And I don't mind if people like it or not. Obviously, I'm very happy if people like our music. I don't mind if the criticisms are touching personal aspects of musicians. If you're listening to the record and you don't like it, it's fine. If you are saying something about me, my private life, or just like, I don't know, I can't stand her because this, and that, I will reply you. I will show myself on social medias because I can't fathom the idea that these people can take advantage of people that is way weaker than me and might not have, biggest shoulder to kind of react and could go downhill because too many people think that they can do whatever they want with what they write without thinking about consequences. So you can attack LACUNA COIL, you can attack Cristina Scabbia because Cristina Scabbia will stand up and reply and tell you that you're a fucking asshole, and will do it not just for you but for everyone else to read that you're a fucking asshole. So maybe next time you either change your tone or don't say anything. Because if you do it to me, I react. If you do it to someone who is, not in the right mental state, this person could do something very bad. And you would be, walking out there feeling, oh, I have a keyboard. I can write whatever the fuck I want. No, that's not exactly how it works. You can express your preference. You can tell, I don't like this record. I prefer the record that they did years ago. And it's the same for reviews. I mean, why would I care about the review of a guy that, I don't know, maybe just listens to black metal and maybe just listen to our record once very quickly, analyzing it and giving it a vote? I don't care. It's just like, okay, whatever. You have a different taste. You thought that the record sucked. Or maybe you wouldn't like it anyway. I mean, you can't please everybody.
Are you quite happy that the band had the opportunity, the timing to grow and everything in a pre-social media age? Because I just feel like now, firstly, social media is a full-time job. So, being a new band, the amount that you'd have to be doing to go and work social media feels awful. But secondly, it's just a bit of a cesspit as well.
Well, yes, because, now it's very, very difficult to build a career. Now it's either all or nothing. If you're a new band, you have to grab attention immediately, or sometimes the labels will not give you a second option. Now everything is so exposed that people are just like fed up way more quickly than it was in the past. When we started, there were no musical platforms. So there were no videos as they are now. It was different. You were religiously waiting for the release of your favorite band. You would line up out of a store to buy a record. Sometimes you would gather money with your friends to buy different records and pass them to each other.
Yeah.
Hey, listen to this. Hey, listen to that. Now, the amount of music produced is humongous. And sometimes the quality is not like 100%, but there is so much stuff. There is an over of stuff, and probably even the perception of music changed from the outside. It's taken for granted. Many people don't think that behind the music, even in a commercial or a TV series, is written by someone who actually spent time to write this music and to record it.
See, I kind of think that the lower barriers to entry for people to get their music out there. I think personally, I feel like it's bad. Not bad, but it has ended up causing more harm than good. Where do you stand on that?
I stand that you can't stop a progress. You can just like follow whatever it's happening, trying to figure it out and figure out what you like and what you don't like about it. To be honest, I mean, it was weird when it went through from. I remember the shock from cassettes to CDs. Everybody was just like, "Oh my God, this is changing so badly," and everybody made a huge fuss out of it. And then it was just like, okay, CD came in, then CDs are still here, but of course, you know, the streaming came in, and things changed again. And what can you do about it? You can't. You just like watch. You do your thing, and you see what happens. I'm not a of the new things. I'm not a fan of AI. AI intended as stealing creativity from others to try to compress everything and give you an idea that it's basically the result of stolen ideas.
Yeah.
I like I like AI when it helps you maybe to process faster some things that would have taken a long time before. I am in need of another world. I'm not English native, so sometimes, you know, my grammar is limited, and you know, I like that I can have, instead of like a lot of books, a lot of dictionaries, I can type in and it's just like, give me some, you know, some different versions of this. I want this word, but I don't want it to sound like this. What other option can you give me? And this is still an interaction that might give me ideas, but they are still human ideas.
Yeah, I saw a brilliant thing of why are people using AI to basically rip off creative people and to make their creative elements. Why don't they use AI to do their jobs quicker so they can spend more time being creative? Or why don't they use AI to, you know, do the washing so you can spend more time being creative? Why do we want to rush the thing that is beautiful in life, you know, being creative and individual? It's bizarre.
I guess I feel bad for those ones that are, I mean, I am in the lucky position that I am part of a band that is established, and we have our style and we have our fan base. But I try to be in the shoes of, I don't know, maybe a graphic designer that spent a whole life, or a photographer who actually studied and worked a lot to achieve all the plus. And now apps are just like, you know, adding a filter to your photographs, to your pictures, or anybody can create a poster in 5 seconds. Just like, okay, put this name, put this type of design behind it. I feel bad. I feel bad.
I totally get that. And it's a very big topic that we could go down, but I know I've only got 5 more minutes of your time, so I just want to get a couple more questions out, so we've got a few more tracks on the show.
Yes.
The latest album, you've had guests from Ash Costello, Randy Blythe. Yes. I just want to ask you, and you can even one-word answer this without any explanations. I want a musician who you would love to collaborate with, one dead, one alive. I think I know who maybe the one who's dead might be.
Yes. The alive one, I would say Jonathan Davis, because I love his voice. He is absolutely recognizable. I love his style. I love Korn, but I also love his personal projects. And he's a person that I met, and I love him because he's so humble, so kind. So it's definitely a person that I would love to work with.
Yeah.
That one, definitely. I mean, it would be a lot to ask, but Freddie Mercury would be cool. And also Peter Steele of Type O Negative.
Okay.
Which, honestly, I mean, if I could take one person back, he would have the priority.
Yeah. Thing is, I can see how Peter Steele could kind of fit in into the sort of Lacuna Coil sound very, not easily, but it would work very well. I wonder with someone like Freddie Mercury, are you going heavier? Are you going lighter? Are you going completely left wing and doing something like like the Barcelona stuff he did with Montserrat Caballé, that kind of thing? Are you doing something completely unique?
I don't know. With Jonathan Davis, I would do something completely crazy because his voice is really good when he does, unexpected stuff. If he was with Freddie Mercury, I would make him go super high and super low, showcasing his incredible talent. And with Peter, I mean, even Peter had a very distinctive voice. It would be a very, very dark, obscure song, but also with ironical, sarcastic lyrics, because he was very sarcastic.
Yeah. Look, Cristina, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
I know you've got so much promo left to do and you've got to run away to somewhere else now. It's out right now. You can go and listen to it. It's fantastic. It's the latest Lacuna Coil album. And if you go to lacunacoil.com, you can see everywhere where you're touring. It is, I'm assuming you have to check on the website quite regularly because you have got an extensive schedule.
Yeah. We're always adding gigs, and again, we're very present on our websites. So even Instagram, like just go there and check the posts.
Brilliant. Look, thank you so much for joining us on Primordial Radio.
Thank you.
Primordial Radio.